His name is Madhusudan Shekar. He's the head of digital innovations and principal tech evangelist at AWS. He's got 20 plus years of experience doing what he does best. Madhu, over to you.
Thank you. Thank you. This is amazing to see, and thanks for spending the time with us today. It's a great learning event. It's a great learning opportunity for all of you. But I work at AWS, and it's amazing to see the traction. It's amazing to see the engagement that we see in this. 2 years ago, actually, I was just sitting in the restaurant today morning, and we were having this conversation. 2 years ago, me and a couple of other startup team members, we actually did sort of a road trip. I think Binu, you were also there, right? So we did this thing in Trivandrum at a NASCOM incubation center. Then we came down to Kochi, and then we went to Coimbatore and all that. And we could actually see the traction evolving, right? And this was 2 years ago. And we could see that, hey, there's movement here, there's momentum here, and we have to sort of see that how we can actually take this to another scale. And when Reshmi started coming in, she's our developer marketing lead out here, and she said, hey, we need to sort of get these user groups going and how we have to take this forward. We were like really getting excited. And as you can see this year, earlier on in the video, Bangalore UG was around for some time. It's been there. Pune was there for a bit. Delhi was there for a bit. But over time, the momentum in the last 12 months has been very, very effective, right? 1,000 plus members. First, congrats to all of you yourself. And as we take this momentum forward, I think we will have the ability, one, to build these really great innovative products in this country, right? At the end of the day, it's not just about the fact that, hey, I learned something in serverless Lambda. That's like boring. I can tell you that. But what you can do is really make fundamental shifts and changes, right? Technology that we have as a plumbing enables us to build higher order systems, and these higher order systems that we build allows us to innovate very, very quickly. And these innovations that we do help us take this country forward, takes this construct forward. We can actually build, take this whole India to, how many of you understand what is India 2, India 3, India 1? No? You don't know what is India 1, India 2, India 3? Okay. How many of you worked in Koramangala, HSR layout in Bangalore? Okay. Do you all know that there are startups there that actually work only in Koramangala and HSR layout? That means anything that they build doesn't work anywhere else in India. There are tons of these startups. All that they do is they build these products. It's very, very hard for those business cases or value cases to work anywhere outside of that. It makes a lot of sense in those markets, right? Which is about 5 square kilometers. But after that, it doesn't work very well, right? Because the mental model approach through which you have to innovate for India is very different, right? So that's what I call India 1. India 1 is the absolute cosmopolitan cities, the mix of people where you have a certain trust with the digital fabric of engagement and how people actually buy, do things, etc. If you look at it, some of the topmost e-commerce companies, which includes Amazon.in, we target about 150 million people today, right? In a population of 1.2 billion. That's like 10%. And that's Amazon.in, guys. If you're any other startup in the e-commerce space, you can imagine your addressable market is like this much, right? But there's a very large India 2. This is people in all kinds of tier 2 cities, very educated, have access to smartphones, have access to the internet, connected, etc., but do not have the underlying mechanics to actually take advantage. And this is where you see the Uber, the Olas, the all of these kinds of Swiggies, etc., starting to penetrate, right? The Amazon starting to penetrate. And this is the second India 2. It's about 400 million people in the country. And then there is India 3. India 3 is everybody, the next 700 million, who currently are on feature phones, early smartphones, and there is a huge population that's actually moving at the rate of about 10 million phones a month into the smartphone market. That's the opportunity as well. Very different. And their needs, their asks, what do they want, are very, very different from what somebody in Bangalore wants or what somebody in Gurgaon wants. Do you agree with me? Right? How many of you can relate to some of the startups that we do, like stuff in Bangalore? Can't, right? It's not the same thing. So we have to build really, really effective products. We have to build products that are very innovative, and that means we need to think about the user, the customer, and start thinking, working backwards from there to see what makes the most sense, right? To a certain extent, I'm going to talk about today on building this innovation mindset, right? I'm going to sort of cite examples of how Amazon thinks about it. Doesn't mean that's the only way to do it. There are a number of other ways to do it, but sort of parks with you the mental model that you need to have, because the rest of the day you're going to have phenomenally strong technical sessions out here, which is all the tools that you will use to leverage how to innovate, right? But how do you build that mindset, the mental model, right? So I have this nice picture of a bulb in a head, which is symbolic representation of innovation, but we'll start with the light bulb. So who invented the incandescent light bulb? Thomas Alva Edison. What if I told you that is not true? No, not Westinghouse. Oh no, he did AC. I mean, not air conditioner, as an alternating current. Right? So, incidentally, the light bulb was not just invented. The most popular light bulb that we came to use, which is the carbon filament, was done by Thomas Alva Edison. There were many other forms of electrical bulbs, incandescent bulbs, that were in use before that point in time. Plenty of them actually. The problem was, it was not just the light bulb that had to be done. The thing is, you had to not only build bulb, you had to build it cheap, you had to build it effective, you had to build something that's very usable. That's the first problem, right? It's not about the cool innovation, but it's about something where consumers can use it, number one. But it's not the fact that you just built the bulb, but you have to do something even more interesting. What Edison did is not just build the bulb, but went ahead and lighted up Pearl Street in New York. What he did was he actually lighted the whole street, and previously what used to happen was there used to be these people who would go for all the street lamps and actually pour oil and light the fire, right? And the bulb will burn for a few hours, and somebody will go refill the oil constantly. What he did was actually change the entire lighting in Pearl Street, which required the fact some wiring had to be done. Then a generating station for the electricity. So there was a generation station that was done, and that station will generate electricity and distribute electricity in a street. Remember, there was a whole ecosystem that had to be developed. It is not just the bulb. It's sort of the same thing that happens with electric cars. You can make a brilliant electric car. Will anybody use it? No, right? You need fueling stations which can recharge your battery. You need the ability to have the necessary sub-infrastructure associated with battery availability, servicing, etc., to make electric cars viable. You just can't build a piece of technology and expect people to just use it. You need a whole sub-ecosystem around it. This is what we call a network of innovations that's required for something to be viable. Let's take e-commerce. How many e-commerce companies were there before Flipkart in India? Many of you understand Flipkart, right? It was the most successful initial startup that did e-commerce in India. Then Amazon.in came after that. A lot of it has history afterwards now, but there were tons. How many of you remember Rediff Shopping? Sifi Shopping? Correct? India Mall, Fab Mall, all of these things existed. The issue was not the fact I can set up a website and have a catalog out there and a price out there. That was not enough. You have to have selection that comes in. You had to have a logistic infrastructure. You had to have a distribution infrastructure. You had to manage returns. You had to manage pricing. All of that in a very, very effective model. Your payments infrastructure had to be, just asking customers to pay only by card made no sense. What Flipkart really innovated was cash on delivery. Correct? It was cash on delivery, and then building the logistics infrastructure to actually get. That's the whole network of innovation that had to be done for that fundamental innovation to work, right? So the primary focus of innovation is not just a single piece, but the whole set of dependent pieces that you need as you work through it. So it's a collaborative effort of not just one organization, but several organizations and several teams coming together to make it possible, but each team focusing on one primary outcome and doing good job at it. So I'll take an innovation that Amazon did, the Kindle. Can you imagine a book reader like this? Will you buy it? How many of you actually bought it, by the way? The first one, the one on the left? The one on the right, I understand. But would you buy the one on the left? That's the first product, right? Now at Amazon, we have this mental model that says, hey, if you want to innovate, one of the things you do is you go ahead, build the product, the minimum viable product, and we want an e-reader, we want to create the right experience, We saw that customers wanted to buy books, but they buy more than one book at a time. They buy books in a particular way. They read books, multiple books at the same time. Voracious book readers, right? They don't buy one book at a time. They buy multiple books at the same time. They also have this interesting habit of actually highlighting and marking books. The strangest thing I've seen is people actually highlighting quotes in fiction books. Right? And sometimes fiction is actually very interesting. So they do that, right? So those features were there. Kindle was very interesting because one of the things it allows you is completely frictionless experience. You go there, take a look at the catalog and say, I want this book. You don't have to pay for communication charge. You don't have to pay for SIM card charges. You don't have to do any of those things. It was all baked into the price of the base product. Very, very simple. And that's how the product got launched. Many things got validated. But then that keyboard made no sense. It was iterated upon, improved upon. But there was a whole network evolution. For this to happen, e-ink readers had to be built, right? The screens. It is not a standard display screen, it's an e-ink screen. The battery technology around it had to be required, the distribution technology around it, the whole mechanism of working with China and making these pieces, the SIM card innovation around it, the ability to have a SIM card that has a fixed feed over a period of 10 years, right? A lot of network innovation that went into it. Then you iterate on it, help the customer engagement happen, customers give you feedback, you arrive there today, right? Another example. And here I want to give you a very interesting thing. As you innovate, especially the digital space, a lot of cohorts of people don't really understand what's going on. And they actually grossly underestimate what you do because you're starting with a minimum viable product. And this is an example of that, right? What happened around 2006 is we started AWS. And Wall Street and Business Week sort of felt we should not do it. So it's actually the publication says, Jeff Bezos wants to run your business with this web technology. Wall Street wishes he would just mind the store. Would they say that today? You really have to be bull-nosed about what, because what happens is when you build something new, there are 4 cohorts of people who will give you feedback. The first is press, the second is analyst, right? The third is your competition, who sort of has a view of what you're trying to do. And the fourth is actually your customers. At Amazon, we have this underlying capability, that the capability is that the first 3 we know how to ignore very well. Right? We listen to them, we hear them out, right? But we know, you know what, okay, we understand what you're saying. But the fourth, the customer, when they give us feedback, one of the things we do is we aggressively iterate on it. So as part of a key innovation mindset is you must be passionate about what you want to build, not emotional about it. What the difference is, you have an idea, you pursue it, the passion drives you to get it there. Now when customers give you feedback, something more interesting occurs. It will deviate from your underlying thought process. Customer feedback, not competitor feedback. Not press feedback, not analyst feedback, customer feedback. Now what happens is you will deviate a little bit along the way, right? So not be emotional about it. Take the customer feedback, iterate on the customer feedback and build your products in such a way that it enables you to build better and better solutions. You don't have to be first. By the way, AWS was not the first cloud. Do you know that? SunGrid was. There was cloud before AWS. There was a search engine before Google, you all know that, right? There are plenty actually. There was Excite, there was Lycos, there was Alta Vista, there were plenty of them. Yahoo was there, Incotomi was there, there was a number of search engines before Google. There were a number of other social networks before Facebook. Right? Facebook was not the first social network. So first movers don't necessarily have an advantage. There is an advantage, but it does not completely sustain the advantage if you don't take feedback from customers and innovate around it. So as part of a key aspect of building an innovation mindset is to take customer feedback, iterate on customer feedback and work towards it. On Amazon, we have this interesting metaphor. We say you can take as much time as you want to launch your product. The day you launch your product is your starting line, not your finish line. Launching a product is not the finish line. Launching a product is the starting line. As soon as you launch a product, something very interesting happens. You start getting massive feedback from customers very, very quickly. And if you don't iterate on that feedback and start building something that makes sense, right, customers will defect. That means if you ran at 100 kilometers per hour getting to the starting line, which is launch of the product, now you have to run faster. You can't slow down anymore because you're being judged publicly, right? So we are all developers, we should understand math. So the function of innovation is 4 things. How do you innovate? Is your organization, how you as a team work together, how do you put yourself, what are the people who are there, technology, the rest of it is all technology, so I'll not get into that, but that's not enough. Think about it, if you are a giant like GE, if you are a giant like JP Morgan Chase, and you're a startup with 2 people in this room, do you know you both have access to the exact same technology? It used to be different those days. Now it's not. Actually, you have access to better technology than they have inertia. They have a problem with the absorption of technology. They cannot go ahead and say, hey, let's go build this in Lambda that easily. You can actually get started faster, really quickly, right? That means you have a fundamental advantage behind the scenes than actually what a larger company has, right? So technology is fully available, but that's not enough. What you need is all of this is going to get amplified. That's the reason we power it with culture and mechanism. You need the right mental model. You need the right culture to move it. And what kind of mechanisms do you need? I'll talk about mechanisms. Is the ability. The mechanisms you need are the ability for you to de-risk or manage risks. Right? How do I manage risks? Right? We look at some of these things as we go. You need a set of principles in your team, a set of principles that's the guiding light of your team. At Amazon, we have something called leadership principles. Right? Google has something similar. Many organizations have something similar. You need a set of principles that sets the guiding light for your team. Right? These are things that cannot be debated easily. You can revise it periodically, but these principles drive what and how somebody will behave. For example, at Amazon, we believe customer obsession is absolutely key. Another organization may decide product innovation is absolutely key. It's up to you, right? But you need those guiding principles. So these are 14 principles. I mean, there's a whole deep dive on it. You can go to our jobs website, amazon.jobs/principles, right? And we'll publish all the 14 principles and great description, because in our interviews, that's where we ask you questions, not on your resume. Right? Your resume is a document. We can read it. It's written in English, I hope. Correct? So we can read it, you can read it. But the fun is not reading that. It's to try to actually dive deep and figure out, hey, what do we know about this? Right? How do you exhibit these characteristics? Because if you exhibit these characteristics, you're a good person, right? You know technology, you can develop, we know you can learn fast, etc., etc. Once we get past that point, will you fit the team? Right? Are you this weird person that we can't deal with? Right? And remember, a lot of times it does happen, right? That doesn't mean you won't fit somewhere else. You will fit somewhere else very well. But will you fit this team, right? That's literally what this is. Do you have the ability to invent and simplify? Do you have learn and be curious? Do you insist on the highest standards when you do your work, right? You don't say, hey, this is not good enough, I need to improve this better. Do you set that tone correctly? Do you earn trust? Do you dive deep on what needs to happen? Do you have a backbone to disagree and commit? Right? These are the principles that guide our light. You need a set of principles that guides the light into way you will think. And what these principles have to drive is a set of behaviors around innovation, behaviors around building products and services and focus on the customer, right? Whichever direction you want to go. Then you have to organize your teams. One of the things that we've clearly seen is that the way you organize this team drives the nature of what you build. There's something called Conway's Law. How many of you understand Conway's Law? Not even a single hand?
Organization's political boundary. Organization's political boundary.
Correct. Determines. So, incidentally, okay, I'm going to make it much more simpler. How many of you have seen a 3-tier entire application architecture? You have user interface, application layer, database layer, storage, networking, etc. Have you gone and seen that your team is also organized the same way? Have you seen that your team is also like front-end developers all sit in one area, DBAs all sit together, application guys all sit together, they all have the same managers, independent managers set up that way. You organize, the way your team's political boundaries are organized, the way your organization structure is designed is exactly how your application architecture will evolve. Those are your lines of communication in the org tree, which means that's literally how your application architecture is going to evolve. Now, if you want to build a microservices driven application, how do you think it's going to look like? Small clustered teams with multiple disciplines that operate with full autonomy, correct? So we call that 2 pizza teams on Amazon. 8 to 14 people that are organized in teams. So this is product manager, developer, front-end developer, back-end developers, full stack developers, name them, the monitoring people, the ops guys, all of them in one team. 2 pizza team, full autonomy, decentralized teams, nimble, own and run what you build, full autonomy to the team so that they can focus on the service that they are building and improve upon it. One or more services that they are working on. Clear? So you need to give the autonomy to the team to improve upon the service. And now let's say those set of people form one service, you are another service and you are using them and they are too slow. What should you do? Find another service. Tell them, not doesn't work, move on. Correct? Why is that important? So I'll give you a very simple example. Have you seen Amazon portal website? Great, okay. Now, have you seen you can see mobile phones as a category. Mobile phones are sold. Consumer durables, televisions, refrigerators, etc., etc. We sell furniture. We sell fashion. All right. Now, the attributes of all these products are actually very, very different inside the product catalog. Do you all agree with me? Okay. Now comes the next part. If they are all very different, each of these teams focus on each of these products are independently improving the way their website and their operations have to run, correct? Now, the mobile phone team wants to do a sale, October 15th to October 20th. The fashion team wants to upgrade the database. How does that work? Who gets priority? Sale gets priority. Will they be able to upgrade the database? They get delayed. Now, what happens? The consumer durable team right behind you is saying, hey, after October 20th, it's our sale from 20th to 25th. Do they think they're going to upgrade the database? What are they doing? Twiddling their thumbs waiting for 20 days? Doesn't work, right? So you need to be able to structure not just your team, but the technology behind that in such a way that you are all completely independently isolated. Amazon is built that way. It's not coming from one database. When you see that website, that product catalog, that shopping cart, etc., it's not coming from one database. It's coming from several instances of databases. Each team, each bold line that you see in the product catalog is a completely different stack. The web server, the app servers, or whatever you want to call them, right? The database in which the data is persisted, the catalog is persisted, etc., is different. Hey, Madhu, how does search work? Very simple. Search is an independently indexing service. It has its own microservice that deals with what it needs to do. How does add to cart work? Independent service. How does shipping work? Independent service. How does addresses work? Independent service. Correct? Now, do you have to wait? Do they have to wait on you? They can keep upgrading. You can still have your sale, right? So what happens is you build autonomous teams with complete modularity, that they have the ability to own and run what they build. And there is technology and topologies available for you to bring them all together today. It's actually very straightforward. And that's the way we organize ourselves. Werner Vogel said it, you build it, you run it. Very importantly, this brings developers into contact with day-to-day operations. This is something that I've seen a lot of organizations struggle with. Do you know how many people sell mobile phones on Amazon? How many salespeople do we have to sell mobile phones on Amazon? Try, give a number. Yeah, but how many salespeople do we have? 0? Good starting point. How many people do you think are there to sell televisions? 0? How many people sell furniture? 0? So here is the trick question. How many people are there to sell insurance? 0. So if you're an insurance company, the next question to you is this. Why do you have one? Have you seen insurance companies? How many do they have? What happened here? So here is the next question after that, much more interesting question. If we have only 0, 0, 0 in all of these, who has the sales quota? Somewhere somebody should own the sales quota, right? Who has the sales quota?
Are you saying that the engineering team wants it?
Who has the sales quota? Very simple question. You had a absolutely, the developers do. I am not going to measure you on the number of lines of code you write. I don't worry about what your defect density is, what your, how many times you're on a Scrum meeting, etc. I'm going to tell you, make sure that the total number of add to cart functions that are executed from your code in a given day is little over 240,000. Will your site go down ever? Will you try to, as a developer, what will you focus on? Because every minute your site is down, somebody is not pressing add to cart. Right? What will be your latency on page rendering? Will you debate 80 milliseconds versus 100 milliseconds now? You won't, right? You'll say, let me go to 80 milliseconds. Why? Because it improves add to cart. Will you do dynamic pricing? Yes. Why? Because it will improve add to cart. So instead of measuring how many lines of code you write, whether you want to write it in JavaScript or religiously in Golang or Rust or Java or this or that, I'm going to say, can we measure the number of add to carts from your code? Focus on the outcome that you need, not on the shadow principles. That's just nice debates for lunch. Driving decisions. Right? What's a one-way door? What's a two-way door? Let's say there's a team here, a person who wants to go ahead and make a decision and say, hey, I want to take this decision. I want to go ahead and refactor this piece of code. It will cause problems. Refactoring is not a problemless exercise, right? It will cause problems. Or somebody wants to add another feature into the product. It's not a problemless exercise. It is going to cause problems. Now what happens is, if the team is able to execute on that decision, go through that door, and finds out it caused a problem, it changed the user experience, users don't like it, whatever, right? And then they can undo that and come back for any number of different reasons within their own budget, controls, etc. It's a two-way door. Agreed? And if it's a two-way door, in Amazon, we believe the team should do it. They should not require approvals to do it. They should just do it. Because if you go ask somebody's permission, you have to explain to them what it is. So if it's a two-way door, you know how to control it, just do it. Figure it out. Right? But if you think you go through the door and you can't come back, right? And it requires somebody else to help you come back, then it's a one-way door for you, for your team. Now what happens is something very interesting happens. You need somebody else to help you. So you need somebody else's approval, you need some team cohesion, synergy, you need to work across a bunch of other people to figure out how to get back. And that's when a one-way door occurs. As a team, you work in a model where in the organization you progressively create more two-way doors. Whenever you see a one-way door, yeah, you work through it, you get a bunch of people together and figure out how to solve the problem. And then you solve the problem, and the next question the manager needs to ask himself or herself is a very simple question. The question is, this one-way door, how do I convert it to a two-way door? Because if I can do that conversion, I have the ability, so the next time some similar problem arises, velocity occurs. Right? Speed in decision making. Have you seen Amazon agents in the call center immediately make a decision saying, sir, you want to return the product? Perfectly fine, please return it. Why? Why do they have that empowerment down below in the call center? Have you seen a delivery agent come to your house and you're not at home and you say, hey, can you please come tomorrow morning? And they say yes. They didn't have to call their manager, right? Their supervisor to say, can I reschedule my route in such a way so that I can come back here? They didn't have to do that, right? How is that possible? Who reallocated that for them? Two-way door decision making. Right? At that level. So the more two-way doors you have, the faster and more innovative you present yourself to your customers. And the faster, more innovative you present yourself to customers, and the customers therefore perceive the feedback, they trust you more. And trust is very, very important. How is trust very important? I'll give a simple example. You take your mobile phone out, right? Go ahead and type www.google.com or whatever. The page doesn't render. What do you think went wrong? Internet connection, correct? You think Airtel is not working. Am I right or wrong? You don't think Google is not working, right? Why not? Now let's go to your office, right? You open the page, you type your intranet portal, enter. Page not found. What do you think is wrong? The site is not found. Same exact problem. Two different perceptions, right? What happens is, based on in the cascade of things, whatever can fall and fail, your trust equation moves. Right. So, what ends up happening is, your perception changes, and you put your confidence in something. That's how you earn trust. So every time you deploy a service out there, you want to earn trust. Right? Services like Ola and Uber, they strive to earn your trust. Services like Swiggy, etc., they strive to earn your trust, right, over time. And you progressively, as the services improve, you build a bias to a certain trust. And earning that trust is critical today, right? Faster decision making allows you to build that trust with the consumer because you're able to innovate and present to them what their needs are. Because remember, again, you launch a product, you cross the starting line, you're running fast, and you need these two-way doors so that you can be innovative in front of them and ensure you meet their needs. That's how you succeed. So I'll take two taxi services as an example here. There is a taxi service started in 2007 globally, and another one that started in 2009. Anybody guess which these two are? What is the service that started in 2007? Taxi service in India. Meru. Meru started in 2007. Anybody here ex-Meru? 1%, 2%, 3%? Excellent. So it's going to be really hard on you. Huh? Another service started in 2009 globally. It was called Uber. It started globally 2008, came to India only in 2013. Now let's look at this. Who do you think had the first website? No, it was Meru. Who had the first mobile app in India? Taxi. Taxi for sure had a mobile app, but who had the first mobile app in India for booking taxis? Meru. So they had a mobile app, they had a website. Oh, by the way, they had it 3 years before Uber showed up in India. In 2010, Meru had a website and a mobile app. 2013, Bangalore, Uber launched. TFS, Taxi for Sure, and this thing was 1 year after that. Now let's go back and understand what happened to Meru. What if I told you the difference between these two at a database schema level was one field? You know what that field is? It's called latitude, longitude, geolocation. Because Meru will ask you, where are you and where do you want to go? Two fields. Where are you and where do you want to go? They will ask you. You have to go manually type it from their lookup window, etc. And then you have to choose the time you want to go and when you want to go and click button. And somewhere in the next 15-20 minutes, somebody will assign you a taxi and you will get an email saying your taxi has been confirmed. It never changed. 2013, Uber comes in and says, it looks like you are here, right? Where do you want to go? You choose where you want to go, and they show you a bunch of taxis. We don't know whether they are real or fake, but they are there, right? And you say, I want to ride now. And one gets allocated in about a couple of minutes, right? And it reaches you in 2 to 3 minutes. So it's not about having a website. It's not about having a mobile app. It's about understanding what the customer really needs. Right. So 2015, Jeff, very interesting. Okay, that's supposed to be a blue highlight. It's not cancelled out text. It is a blue highlight. All right, so I'll sort of, incidentally it shows a black here as well, so I can't really read it directly, but I'll sort of explain to you what this is. In 2015, so Jeff Bezos writes his annual shareholder letters, and this is largely about the mechanisms, and we very quickly come to an end. In the mechanisms part, one of the pieces that you really have to understand is how do I de-risk myself, right? And what are the risk capacities do I have? At Amazon, we especially think, we have this tolerance for failure. Remember, when you're innovating, something very interesting is going to happen. You're going to fail. How many of you have done experiments in school? Only 5-6 people? The rest of you guys did what? All of your college dropouts, Bill Gates? No, right? So how many of you did experiments in school? Okay, now a lot more hands go up. Okay, but yeah, none of you did. Right? That was the trick question, right? The reason is, an experiment is something that when you do not know the answer. Right? You take ingredients A, B, and C, send it through process P. If you know your outcome is O, then it's not an experiment. If you take ingredients A, B, and C, send it through process P, you think you will get O, but you get O dash, O double dash, etc., that's an experiment. Right? You should not know the outcome. You are working in the direction of the outcome. You have an hypothesis about the outcome, but you really don't know what the outcome is. That's an experiment. Right? So again, going back to Thomas Alva Edison, so what happened is he took different materials and tried it. Every time he tried it, he had a hypothesis it would work. It did not work. About 6,000 materials he tried. Right? Eventually landed on the carbon filament at vacuum. Right? So ingredients A, B, and C, process P, coming to an outcome O. So the challenge is, if you want to be inventive, what's going to happen is you're going to fail a lot. Not once, not twice, not thrice, 6,000 times, like Thomas Alva Edison. And then you're going to succeed. Right? Now what happens in most organizations is, you do not have the stomach to face those failures. Right? You don't have the capability to say, hey, if I run this experiment, it can fail. Everybody wants to know what the outcome is before you start. Then it's not an experiment. If you're not experimenting, you're not innovating. Correct? And if you're not innovating, then you're not being innovative. So this ability for you to manage that risk of failure, right, is a very, very key component in the mechanisms you need to have. Like the two-way doors, etc., you need to build a mechanism that says, we will tolerate failure. And remember, Amazon has plenty of failures as an organization. Right? We live in failures. Every single day we fail. Some of those rare things that we succeed, you see. The rest, we fail. And we fail wonderfully. Thing is, you have to make these outsized experiments, and all of this will cost. And remember, today with technologies like serverless, containers, etc., with cloud, it is possible for you to run digital experiments at really, really low cost. Why? You can stand up an infrastructure, you can run your experiment, it doesn't work, you can shut down the infrastructure. Previously, you couldn't do that, right? It goes to the data center, then you're stuck for 5 years of depreciation. How many of you come from an enterprise background? In an enterprise, that's your classical problem, right? You want to run an experiment, but the CFO says, give me the net present value of this against 5 years. Reason, because the investment that you do today, as far as the CFO is concerned, is going to take 5 years to depreciate. You would have failed in 3 months. You can't switch off. So you need to mentally think about, that's the advantage of cloud. Right? Which means, if you're doing work at a high velocity, inventing at a high velocity, and you're able to generate value. So one of the metrics that you really need to focus on is, what is my time to value? How quickly can I push value to the customer in front? I perceive the value, I see there is value in this experiment. I'm going to build that experiment, run it, and put it in front of the customer, generate that value and go back. How long would it take for you to do that in the organization? How long does it take for your team to do this? Start measuring this. How long does it take? Is it 3 hours? Is it 3 months? Is it 3 years? The shorter it is, the more innovative you will become, because you will be able to try more, experiment more. You can try small chunks because you need to go in small chunks, improve, receive feedback, and go back again. So you start measuring time to value, the rate in which you are able to do that effectively. And remember, the whole journey that we do in IT and technology is about doing the time to value and delivering that value to customer. Do you know that previously we used to build hardware that was specific to software? Right? All the hardware we built machines that would do payroll. We didn't build software to do payroll. We built a machine to do payroll. We built a machine to do weather computing. Right? That's literally how we used to build things. Progressively, the IBM AS400 was the first machine that separated hardware and software. Right? It actually separated and said, hey, you know what, this is a piece of hardware, and then you can write software in COBOL and actually deploy on it and it will do stuff. Right? That's the separation that came in, which means you can do business different functions to do, get different value out of it over time. The rate in which you could innovate became faster and faster because I didn't have to build the hardware. Right? I can build a payroll software, deploy it. I can build accounts receivable software and deploy it on the AS400. Progressively open systems and all that. The thing is, these machines took so long to build and get deployed. Now it is actually possible for me to put it on racked machines and then blades and then cloud. The time it takes for me to instantiate a machine piece, develop a piece of software, deploy it in there, try the experiment, and then decommission the whole thing is less than a few hours. Time to value. Right? And then we said, I know what, that's still slow because it takes 2.5 minutes for me to launch a server. Gone are the days where it takes months. It's 2.5 minutes to launch a server was bad. So we said we'll go to containers. Because launch time is 16 seconds, 20 seconds. And then somebody said, that is too slow. We'll go to serverless. Launch time is 140 milliseconds. There are people debating this concept of cold start times in serverless, right? Where it is 140 milliseconds, right? Where you get, that means you get practically a compute infrastructure up, running, the function runs, gives you the output and shuts down, right? Or the cold start of 140 milliseconds where it runs for 200 milliseconds and people complain. And I'm like, do you know the last time you started a server took 2 minutes? And before that it used to take a few months. Time to value. Right? That means if you focus on technologies like serverless, containers, etc., it is the ability, it's the velocity in which you're able to deliver innovation. That means you can improve your code, you can improve the value that you generate and deliver it to your customer at faster iterations and faster paces. Today, some of the leading organizations push the numbers in this area. So that's Amazon's number. Good? Thank you.
Can we have a louder round of applause, please? Thank you. All right, Madhu, can I still have you on stage, please? All right, Madhu, that was amazing. Thank you so much for all the insights. And I can vouch, a friend of mine, or actually the closest friend I have, is from Amazon. And the leadership principles are so well ingrained in him. He quotes it during our breakfast conversations. If I start ordering something slightly more expensive, he's like, bro, frugality. So it goes without saying. That's how deeply ingrained the leadership principles are with Amazon employees. That was phenomenal. Thank you so much, Madhu. May I invite Dijesh up on stage to give a small token of appreciation for Madhu.